So hello ladies and gentlemen, today you are watching the first episode of many of the new show with the one and only Steve Gomez. Thanks for being here.
Hi everybody. Nice to be here.
Brilliant to have you here.
Yeah.
On this beautiful Sunday morning. With
I don't know what I'm doing here Sunday morning. sitting in a 20-year-old's bedroom while he's in his onesie. It's kind of like, one of those bizarre moments that my life has brought me to. If you told me 20 years ago that I'll be sitting on a Sunday morning talking to you in your onesie, then I think I would have had a real big rethink about the way my life was going. But anyway, it's good. We're here and we've got a lot to talk about. And let's just kick off.
Well, thanks, man. Let's talk a little bit about this new show.
Yeah. Excellent.
So the point of this show is to basically give insight and information, or I don't know. Basically, we want to be your friends in your eardrums as you're working, as you're living your Sunday. Yeah. We want to be a voice of reason, and also, I don't know, something where you can listen to conversations you wouldn't listen to otherwise. And speaking of conversations, today we are going to be talking about an issue or whatever you want to call it, a cultural phenomenon in the West, which is individualism. And this encompasses a range of different things from people's aspirations in life to what they want to do, to what they don't want to do, to how they treat people, to actions of morality, the list goes on. But first of all, Steve, what's your thoughts of the show and what are you most excited for?
I mean, I think this is a great opportunity, Rory, and as you said, it's rarely that your age group maybe get a chance to hear my age group. And I have to say that it's always wise to listen to one's elders. I was brought up sort of paying attention, and I mean, it's become unfashionable, this whole culture of youth culture. It's like youth have got the answers, and I'm sorry, you don't. You really don't. When you reach the grand old age that I am, which is 38, a little bit more, significantly more. But the point is that I've had many years of experiences, and I've been through this, and I just want to be able to share some of the insights that I've got in my life. And I'm not, I don't know everything, but I think it's worth listening to another view, which a lot of you may not be able to get, and even your parents won't speak to you the way I speak to you. I mean, I know even with my kids, I don't think we have these conversations. But with Rory and I, we can actually have these conversations. And I'm hoping what it's going to do is going to give you some insight, which is kind of like an important word for us here. And we thought of the word insight really because it's got a double entendre depending on the way it's spelt. There's insight, as in SIGHT, and then there's insight with CITE. And so I thought that was quite an interesting play on words. And, we would like to give some insight which might incite you to look at your life differently, look at the world differently, and maybe, get some of you to start doing things to make the world a better place. And I want to say right at the beginning, we're not trying to get people to do anything violent, aggressive, or earth-shatteringly bad. We just want people to think, and we are about peace and love, really. I know it's a bit of a hackneyed term, sorry, but it really is. It's the case, and I hope that the conversations we have will stimulate some of you to think differently, and maybe we'll give you some food for thought. So really, I'm looking forward to this because I can express my feelings and thoughts, which I hope will challenge some of you. I really hope that does challenge you because we're all living in silos at the moment, and this is the big problem. We've got this silo mentality. I looked at my Facebook page and I've lost a lot of friends over the last 3 years. I'm not going to go into the shit that's happened, but I've lost a whole bunch of friends and I've got a whole lot of new friends. It's great, but all the new friends kind of agree with me, and I love that. But I want to reach out to people who don't agree with me because it's important that we have that debate and we have that discussion. And if we don't have that kind of conversation, then life's going to get a bit dull, isn't it? I mean, it's getting dull, really, isn't it? The agenda TV society, in my view, has become just two-dimensional. You know, when I grew up, when I was a young man, I was talking to some friends about this. You know, we had just the most colourful life. I was talking to you about it, wasn't I? We were talking about when I was growing up, the sort of skinheads, rude boys, ska music, mods. I mean, mods were before my time, but, you know, there was this culture of new romantics. I mean, goths were just coming on the scene around that stage. Punks were huge. You know, it was all coming out of the punk movement, and it was morphing into ska music, two-tone, specials, selector, all that kind of music. Then you had the skinheads, and we as a young group of people were excited about the music. You know, I mean, people still listen to 70s, 80s, 90s music. And what's happened to the music scene? You know, what's happened to young people expressing themselves? You're all just sitting on your bloody phones or playing games. And I mean, where's that interaction that we used to get? You know, even the younger kids, my partner's got a 10-year-old boy, and I want him to go out and play football with his mates or go for a cycle ride. Do something crazy like I did. You know, we used to Evel Knievel. Do you know who Evel Knievel was? Right, he was a stunt guy, and he used to do motorbikes jumps over like canyons and whole rows of cars, right? And I used to try and replicate it on my bike. I had a rally pave master, and I'd get the local girls to lie down. And there was about three girls who I used to play with because there weren't that many blokes near me. And I had this ramp, and I'd try and jump them. And the number of times, you hit me, you landed on me. Yeah, it was terrible. Yeah, well, on their hand or something like that. But it wasn't too bad. It was. I wasn't heavy. I was on my bike, you know. And we'd make these ramps, and we'd try and do crazy things. And no, they were fine. They I think they were. One of them walks with a limp these days. No, I'm joking. She's slightly sort of like, I broke her hip. No, that's a joke. I'm joking. I didn't do that. But what I'm trying to say is that we did crazy things as kids, you know, and that doesn't happen now. You know, my partner's kid walks home from school sometimes, and we had a whole bunch of parents like, oh, you let him walk home? I was like, yeah. You know, it's not far. What's happened? And I mean, it's. I think to be honest, it's the age group. Yeah, some of the parents.
It depends if you're a girl, though. I think if you're if you're a girl, I think it's different. If you're like a boy, I think. Oh,
okay. It's always been like that.
Girl. Like if I had a daughter, I would be very cautious.
Yeah. But I think what's happened is we've been cosseted and made to feel frightened by society. You know, there are, according to the papers, there are paedophiles in every corner. You know, and there are some wicked people, and you know, life is about getting out there and doing it, and just ignoring that. It's you know, really unusual. Thank God for anything awful to happen. But the problem is because the media is so in our face, and they try and frighten us. We know this. It's part of the game. Keep the people controlled, keep them fearful, you know, keep them acquiescent and compliant. And if you have an acquiescent and compliant group of people, then they'll do anything. And going back to individualism, you know, where is individualism in many respects? Where is it? We're being morphed into hive mind, you know, almost. In fact, you could say it's hive mind because the phone is our hive mind. We're all connecting to it. Social media is a connection. You know, I would love a world where technology was used only for the benefits that it can give us. And I'm not quite sure that we're using it to the best advantage. We're hanging on it. We're almost desperate for technology to solve what's in us. When in actual fact, if you were to, you know, park that phone, get rid of the phone, started to live your life without that connection to technology, look, I'm sounding like an old fart, but I think there is a problem that we've got with individuality, hive mind think, that kind of group think, which is agenderized and modulated by the media, and especially in the last 3 years, it's become worse. I think kids have just become. I mean, you don't have, you know. I mean, okay, there's a lot of crap going on, and I know a lot of you kids know friends who are up to you know, mischief and not good stuff, but. Anyway, sorry, I'm having a rant.
No. I thought it was powerful what you said, because, like, the thesis of what you're saying is people today think they know better than before. That's the kind of underlying rot that we see with everything. And I get what you mean about how, like, my generation, for instance, I remember growing up, going to the park, you know, going crazy, playing football. playing my little soldiers, my imagination going wild. I know today.
Do any of you play in the woods? Does anybody play in the woods?
I remember, I used to love, I used to go to the woods, I'd play like sword fights with sticks I remember,
put a rope over the stream.
Or like castles, going in rivers. That's what it was about. But now, people growing up, the mind is now depleted, and it's everything's done for you. So it's an Xbox. You have an Xbox. You have a PlayStation.
So maybe what you do is you put one of those
VR
things, and you can experience living a childhood life with your VR. I mean, how fucked up is that? Seriously, I mean, if it's getting to that stage, wasn't that Bruce Willis film Surrogates? Have you ever watched the film Surrogates?
No, it's terrible.
I mean, I'll try and basically praise it. It's basically people who can create a surrogate living being, so it's like a clone, and you can design them so they're beautiful, perfectly fit, and then you connect to the surrogate through your, you lie in your seat, can put your head thing on, and you live the life of the surrogate. So what happens is all these surrogates are interacting, having a great time, but the actual person is some old granny sitting in her bed. And it's amazing about how, it's a good film. I don't want to give the game away, but when the system goes down, it's a scary moment when these people come out like, I mean, that really is the way we're living at the moment. Plato's cave. Do you know the allegory of Plato's cave? Have you heard of this?
No.
I would highly recommend all of you to look at Plato's cave, because I think this is really important for what we're discussing now. So Plato was 3,000 years ago, something like that, before Christ. Plato was a great philosopher, and there's an amazing allegory he gives of these people who've spent all their lives living in a cave, and they're chained up in the cave, and all they can see is the shadows from the cave entrance projected on the wall. So their whole life is seeing these shadows, and they believe that's life. That's what they believe is life, because that's what they see. It's like us watching TV, watching the media. It's like a projection that comes in behind them. And so they are quite happy to believe that this is what life is. You hang there and life is that. One of them manages to escape, and he goes out and he blinks in the sun, and he's like, oh my God, there's actually a real world here. And he starts to go around, and then he discovers things, he has some experiences, and he comes back to tell these people, what he's experienced. They don't believe him, they kill him. And it's a very powerful allegory, because it's almost like a reflection of what's happening in our lives right now. We're not seeing life properly. I don't believe your generation and the generation between you and me has really experienced life the way that I think my generation and the older generations. I don't know if you've watched that lovely film called Cider with Rosie. Have you ever seen that?
No.
Look at the older version. There's a new version, I think, done with Michael Caine. It's okay, but I prefer the older version. It's called Cider with Rosie, and it's set in the turn of the century, First World War. It's a very simple film, but it's beautiful, heartbreakingly beautiful. And you just look at the life they had. The book is written, and the title is Cider with Rosie, because the high point in his life was lying under a wagon on a summer's day drinking cider with this young girl called Rosie. It's such a heartbreakingly beautiful film. I highly recommend it. And I want to be able to give that opportunity for people to experience getting out into the countryside, living life that I believe God created us to live. He created Eden, which was a beautiful paradise for us to live, and somewhere along the line it got screwed up, and we're now, living in our phones, living in a cyber world. So yeah, I'm sad about that.
Yeah, I think what you speak about life is the authenticity of emotion has gone in so many respects of how people communicate. Like, even if you go to a bus stop, or if you're at the train station, or if you're a young person now, you don't stand there and experience the emotion of awkwardness or boredom or fatigue. It's just, no, you got to get on your phone. You've got to have that blanket.
You're not allowed to be bored, are you?
Yeah.
You can't be bored. And I mean, I actually believe that boredom is one of the most creative experiences anybody could have, because I spent hours, days being bored. I didn't have anything, some places where I lived, I didn't have any friends near me. because my dad was a doctor in those days, and junior doctors moved around a lot. And before the age of 12, I think I went to about 8 different schools, and I constantly moved around, so I couldn't make friends, and I just spent time bored. So I invented things to do. When I was very young, I decided I was trying to catch birds, and I'd use a box with a stick on it, and I would just become inventive. I love making models. I love painting. I loved just going out and doing things on my own, and that was a hugely creative experience. And I look at kids now, if they get bored, and the other thing is, parents get panicky if their child's bored. They think they're failing, okay? And so what's happened is that parents, the tail is wagging the dog. So parents are run by their children's needs, okay? And it wasn't like that when I was growing up. My needs were seriously subordinated to my parents' needs. My parents' needs came first. I was the one who got the short end of the stick. And do you know what? That wasn't a problem. That's the way it should be. I really think that that's part of the problem with culture at the moment. Parents are made to feel that they have to satisfy the needs of their children on every level. Okay, so that's why you get little Johnny. He goes to rugby on Sunday. Then he probably does karate on Monday. He probably does chess club on Tuesday. He probably does origami on Wednesday. Every day is sorted. And what you're getting is a whole group of people who are burnt out. They're burnt out because they weren't allowed to feel bored. And when you daydream, it's like you get those the same brain waves as when you get REM sleep. And when you're bored, you get that. When you're tired, you're thinking, what am I going to do? And if you just sit in yourself and spend that time in yourself, there's a great value to that. Be still and know that I'm God. If you know that beautiful saying. And I'm not saying that's a case of boredom, but sometimes just being still and just taking in the world is a powerful meditation. And I'm not talking about sitting, saying Om and sitting cross-legged. I'm saying just being still. And just giving yourself half an hour of stillness, peace, connecting with yourself and enjoying the present. The present is called the present because it's a gift. So, try and spend more time in the present.
Powerful what you said there. Interesting about what you said about consumerism with not consumerism, that's the wrong word, but how kids are overly stimulated so they're not stimulated by anything. That's a very interesting point because you can extrapolate that to loads of things, even with how people value food. The amount of wasted food now every year increases. Well, I'm not sure if... I know exponentially it's increased. I'm not sure if it's every year. Yeah. But I'm sure it is, though. And part of that could be, almost degrading of the value of food itself. If you have an amazing meal now, it's like, oh, yeah, that was all right. Or let me just order something else. And... and kind of bring it back to the thesis. I'm losing all these fancy words of individualism. Yeah. The crux of all of this is the individual. You spoke about when you were growing up is about your parents, but now it's more about the kids. And I think that's what the West is suffering with more than anything. It's this individual focus of how they live their lives and what they do with their lives, and this results in we got population decline, we got all these issues, and I think it's because what you said about creativity, and I can relate to that because I can remember being bored and writing, because I would say I'm not the most creative guy ever, but I've got a bit of creative spark in me, and I remember I was very bored and I wrote a film script, or I was really bored and I had this idea for this thing, or before I launched a podcast, for instance, I would have so many boring moments, and I always thought about, I'm going to do a fucking podcast, I am going to do it, and I'm going to stick to it, and here we are 130 weeks later.
Yeah, there you go. See, you something came out of that boredom. Came out of that boredom. I would make, I'd get rubber inner tubes, and I would make catapults. I'd make it's different. It's a different world because I didn't have technology. So I would make bows and arrows and things like that. I'd make a den. I'd be outside or inside. I'd go and buy an affix model, make affix. That was the thing. Affix models, painting, doing creative things like that. So, and I think the problem we've got is that should come from yourself. It shouldn't be like mummy and daddy giving you things to do. And that's what's happening now. The parents go in this panic. Johnny's bored. He was sitting in his room and he's bored. I'm worried about him. For God's sake, don't worry about him. he's fine. Just give him that chance.
Part of that could be because more and more, more and more. It's double-edged sword, isn't it? Because like more and more people now, depressed, suicide. So I understand why more parents are concerned by that isolation, but part of the reason they feel that is because of dependency. And I remember some of the happiest moments of my life were when I was just sat with some soldiers and go-go's. I don't know if anyone remembers go-go's or OG, the little thing. And I remember having them and having these, and I would spend literally, I remember I'd look forward to the weekends and I'd just be sat there and it was hilarious. I'd envision like a football. I was obsessed by security and police. So I'd experience a football match, and then I think I've spoke about this before about them being like riot police, and it's a riot, and I'd move them about, and I had so much fun. Yeah. And like now I have a PC and stuff, and I could actually do that on a technological scale almost, but I don't because that's something so magical I think about life. And I've experienced this with a lot of things from, not like I'm a writer at all, I'm not, but like editing. I remember some projects I've worked on for clients or something, I'll be there like, what the hell am I going to make? And then I'll be making a tea and something, whatever that voice is, I don't know what it is, comes into me and says this. Yeah. And our generation is lacking that magic to life. Yeah. I guess, what do you think my generation with individualism, because there's so many different ways we can do it. We're kind of talking about it in a broad brush. What do you think we can do as a culture for young people to stop people focusing on themselves?
Become poor. Seriously. I mean, if you look at the children in Africa, okay, anybody who's been to Africa or even India, look at the joy in those children's lives. And I know I grew up in a relatively wealthy family, and so I was okay, but I mean, I wasn't spoiled. I think too many people are spoiled, and I think you have too much. And I think when you've got too much, life loses its sweetness. And I found that the times when I had the least was when I was happiest. Wow. It's really amazing. And, I'm not saying just, wear sackcloth and ashes and walk around being mopey. I'm not saying that, but, maybe you've got too much. Maybe you've got too much. Maybe you've lost the joy in the simple things. And what counts most in life is not what you own, not what you have, not what you do. It's the relationships you have. How good are the relationships you've got? That's what feeds you. And if you read the Book of Solomon, I think in Solomon says, life is useless. He was the wealthiest man probably ever lived, apart from Croesus and various other, great wealthy men, kings of the earth who still exist now, Bill Gates, etc. These were wealthy men. And Solomon, who was a thinker and prayed for wisdom and received wisdom, I can't remember, I wish I could quote it, but he says somewhere in the Bible, he says, everything is useless. The only thing is eat, be merry, for tomorrow you die, that kind of thing. Eat and be merry. Work, eat and be merry with other people. Yeah, that is the essence of life.
That's so powerful. And one of my favourite quotes in the Bible is, I really need to sharpen up on actually quoting the Bible, but it's the quote about what is a man if he sells his soul to gain all the riches of the world, or something like that.
Yeah.
Do you remember do you remember how it goes?
I can't. I'm trying to find the quote. I had a similar thing because I, as you know, had an opportunity to possibly make a lot of money, when I worked in stockbroking and banking, and I was given this opportunity to help set up what was Europe's first internet bank. And I thought this was it. I thought this was going to be the making of me, So I worked my arse off. I really, really put everything I had into it. And I burnt myself out. I was very ill. And the whole thing collapsed after a while because of the dot-com bubble, all of that. And I lost, the millions of pounds of potential shares that I had, all went to naught. And I remember thinking, this thought came into my head, it's all well and good reaching for the stars, but sometimes when you reach for the stars, you might lose your world. Okay, and so be careful what you reach for, because that thing you're standing on, that beautiful thing, you might lose that as well. And you never get the stars, and you lose your world, and you're screwed.
Yeah. I think that's really powerful. And I can, because what I want to do with this podcast, I want to grow it, I want to make a show, I want to make a movement, a community, and I never want to lose vision of what I'm actually here to do, which is to make change to people's lives, to make someone who's suffering out there, someone who's in a bad place, bring a spark of joy, or to make cultural change, to make a young people out there, not just young people, all people, think about what the hell are they doing with their lives. Not that I'm some sort of saint who knows what to do with your life, but I can have good input to that. And even just having conversations like this, because we're all on a journey of an improvement, but it's where are you aiming for? That's the pinnacle to it.
Beautiful.
And I think that's really powerful, because it's something that can ground you so much in life. And I say this to anyone out there: do not get controlled by money, in the sense, like, if you want to be rich, you want to be wealthy, truly look into your soul and ask yourself that. Because I've, for a very long time, and I shamedly admit this, when I was younger, I was jealous, I was envious, I was this, I was that. I thought about, and I'm writing a Substack on it, radicalenglishgentleman.com, and link in description. And I really wanted to acquire wealth. I really wanted to be this, be that. And I realised that is so fake, and that's a plaster for your insecurity. You will not seek fulfillment from that. And name a single rich person, millionaire, billionaire, who says, like, oh yeah, money, best thing ever, like, makes me completely happy. You won't find anyone, because they know that isn't the case. And you there's beautiful people out there who I've met who have nothing. Like, I spoke to this guy the other night. It's really heartbreaking. Guy who he's very poor. He doesn't have anything, and he suffered with depression, and he it's really sad. He was in a relationship, married, and his wife left him because he was depressed and stuff. And fuck me, it's so sad. So his wife left him, and 6 months after, everyone said to him, it'll get better. And it's been 24 years later, and he still feels the exact same as when she left him. And and it was so heartbreaking, because this was a lovely man. And I've realised, like, there are people, very good people, who suffer out there, but it's better to be the good person, I think, who suffers, and to look at yourself when you're in your deathbed, when you're about to die, and be like, I was a good person, than to sell your soul to the world. And it's so easy to. And I've seen the inside of it with the people I've worked with. I've worked with rich, famous people. Not like, I'm not like inside fucking like Davos or whatever, but I've worked with affluent people, rich people, and I've seen how it corrupts their brain. And to especially young men, and I really do want to speak about this a lot. And that's why when I went to a school that I spoke about it, because I know the thoughts that young men have, because the insecurities of life, and what their ambitions are with that. What are your thoughts? Can
I go back to that man? So, I mean, I've been through some trauma in my life, and I've experienced it. One will do. That's the way life goes. I mean, I pray that all of you have a, easy trip in life, but I don't think life is about that. I think life, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I really believe that. Don't go and try and kill yourself, obviously. But, I've spoken about my divorce and things like that, some dark times in my life, which was very difficult.
Do you want to speak? Because there's some newer people now who won't.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, I was divorced 10 years ago, been married 16 years, 4 kids, and that came out of the blue, and it really broke me. It was a very, very difficult time. And what I discovered was I had to find ways of getting myself out of that really, really bad depression. I couldn't stop crying. I was in a really bad place, and I couldn't see the end of it. And then what I came to my mind was, it's a little bit like driving a car. And there's this saying that if you dwell in the past, you become depressed from regret. If you dwell in the future, you become anxious because you don't know what's going to happen. So therefore, what you've got to do is find that beautiful place in the present and just enjoy what you've got. Just find that point. I'm enjoying at the moment talking to you. I'm not thinking about tomorrow. I'm not thinking about the past. I'm enjoying this conversation with you. Obviously, I'm referring to the past because I'm telling you a story about something that happened to me. But the term I use is, this man was depressed because he hadn't been able to get himself out of that funk. He was trapped in his own mind. And, a prisoner is someone who's trapped in a prison. But if his mind is free, he's not a prisoner. Okay, I watch hundreds of people on a daily basis walk past me, and I see it in their faces, and they're trapped in their own minds. Okay, they're trapped in a state of thinking. They're trapped in a way of thinking. They're trapped in a pattern which is destroying their lives, and they're just going through the motions of trying to make their lives work. Okay, you need to free your mind. You need to open your mind, and you need to realize that there's more than what's happened in the past. So what he did was he had looped thinking. He couldn't get out of this thing, which was, oh God, I'm depressed and I love my wife and she's going to come back, but she's not going to come back. Okay, no, I love my wife because she's going to come back, and I don't know if she, and it goes on and on and on. So he's existing there. And so what I say to people is, okay, I want you to try and drive a car. Don't do this. It's just a story, all right? Just like I want you to try and imagine driving a car by only looking in the rearview mirror. Okay, so you drive your car and you just look in the rearview mirror. What the hell is going to happen? You're going to end up just smashing everything up, aren't you? Well, you do exactly the same in your life. If you just constantly look and think of the past, you're going to be running into things because you're not working it out. The other thing is, if I'm looking too far ahead, okay, I'm not paying attention. So live in the present and be thankful. Just be grateful and thankful that you've got that time, that you can spend that time in the present. As a famous philosopher who talks about the present, he's got a Danish name. I'll try and remember it for next time. But I want to read this to you, actually, because this is what we're talking about, Solomon, okay, and the meaning of life. Now, this man, Solomon, God, he asked God for wisdom, and God gave him wisdom. And not only did he give him wisdom, but he gave him just enormous wealth. Read the Bible. It's from the Old Testament. It's the book of Ecclesiastes, which is an amazing thing. And there's an old 60s song which goes, turn, turn, turn. I'll try and find the song. Sorry, I'm not very good at singing. It's a beautiful song, and it's from Ecclesiastes, okay? There's a time to be born, there's a time to die, there's a time to cry, there's a time to laugh. And it's a beautiful song, if you can get it. I think it's by the Birds, I think. Anyway, but I want to read this, because this is from Ecclesiastes. So, sorry, I haven't got my glasses on, so forgive me if I can't read this very clearly. And so this is Ecclesiastes chapter 8, verse 15. So I commend the enjoyment of life, because there is nothing better for a person under the sun than to eat and drink and be glad. Then joy will accompany them in their toil all the days of the life God has given them under the sun. Can I read that again? So I commend the enjoyment of life, because there is nothing better for a person under the sun than to eat and drink and be glad. Then joy will accompany them in their toil all the days of the life God has given them under the sun. It's really simple. Enjoy life. Make a choice to enjoy life. Okay. Stop trying to be the best. Be better than anybody else. Stop comparing yourself to other people. Be thankful and grateful for the things you've got. And if you've got too much, give it away. Make other people happy, because by giving you receive. Okay, so if you're surrounded, imagine how the world would be if the 1% gave away even 10% of what they have. Okay,
but like everyone should.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. I try to lead a relatively frugal life. I'm not brilliant, but where I can give, I give if I can, and thankfully God's given me an opportunity to do that. So, so I really commend that reading to you. The other thing I wanted to talk about is there's a lot of words used now which weren't really used that much, and they've been twisted a little bit, like cappuccino, for example, which I've also mentioned before. So cappuccino, did you know what cappuccino means?
Yeah, I forgot from last.
Okay, everybody thinks it's cappuccino. No, it's not cappuccino. It's cappuccino, and it's named after a small. It's Capuchin monks wear brown cassocks.
Can I
with a
follow
light
you
brown.
up on what you were saying?
Yeah.
So about what you were saying before, I think. I what you said is very powerful, and I think to a lot of people they can relate strongly in not living in the moment and living in the future, living in the past, focusing on mundane, vapid things that don't benefit their life at all, and it's a choice. But to people out there who are suffering, who all they do is try and do that, but can't do that, because I know there'll be people listening who might be in a place in their life where all they want to do is just get rid of all the things they think about. All they want to do is that, but they can't, and they're in this rut, and they're in this state of despair and torture. What's your message to those people?
Have a cappuccino. Go out, meet some people, sit down, talk. Look, there are situations where people get in a rut. I've been in a rut. I think you've got to be very careful that you don't describe yourself in depression. People use the word depression incorrectly. Depression is where you really can't do anything. You can't even get out of bed, can't even look after yourself properly. Serious depression is very bad, and it can be classified as a mental illness, which means it's linked with your thinking. Mental illness means there's a problem with your thinking. Think about that, okay? You have it within you. You have the power within you to shake that off. And I know that sounds really easy, but when you make the decision that you're going to smile every day, that you're going to change your life because you don't want to live the life that you're unhappy with, you have the choice to make that decision. Unless you're suffering from a very serious aberration of your brain, something which is, sorry about that, if you're struggling with something that is causing you grief, and it's actually a physical issue, then yeah, you need to go and get some help. And I'm not telling anybody not to get help, but the simple way to deal with those situations that the people who are really low, really down, is to make that concerted effort to get out and make a difference to your life. Don't sit and dwell. The more you dwell on what's wrong, that's self-pity. And Rory, I've spoken about this. The biggest killer, the thing that will take you to that place of suicide, is self-pity. When I worked in the church helping homeless and addicts and things like that, the one thing I noted that every single one of these guys who were on Skid Row, the one thing they all exhibited was this unbelievable sense of self-pity. They felt sorry for themselves. Now, seriously, if you start feeling sorry for yourself, you've got some major problems. You really have. You need to snap out of that.
Can I just interject? Because I really like what you're saying, and I think to most people it can be applied, but I struggle with that because there's people who've killed themselves who they put on a smile every day. They live virtuous lives. They do good things. They give their all to other people. Like I remember, I heard a story about someone who they were, some of the they give their all. They give away all their money. They do this. They do that. They try to live the most virtuous life possible, but they still want to murder themselves. And there's so many people out there who have taken their own lives. Surely it's something more than self-pity. Because self-pity can only go a certain way. Because if you're not willing to say to someone you're in that state, is that self-pity? Because surely for it to be self-pity, it would have to include saying to someone that. But a lot of these people suffer in silence and then they kill themselves. And it's the most heartbreaking thing ever. So I find it difficult to... I'm not saying you're calling these people, self-pity merchants or whatever, but how do those people live? And how does someone put on a smile on their face when they want to murder themselves, they want to die, and they think about killing themselves? How does someone get out of that? It's
in your head. It's in your head. Only you have the ability to control your thinking. God gave us the most amazing gift of choice, freedom of thinking, okay? So you choose whether you want life or whether you want death. If you choose death, then dwell on all the bad things. Let them crowd into your head. Let them occupy your mind. Let them infest your day. You will then go down that route. And I can tell you that you go and speak to an addict, go and speak to an alcoholic, go and speak to them, ask them, well, when I was a kid, my dad was really horrible to me and he's ruined my life and my life has never really picked up of this. And they'll tell you a story. They'll tell you a sad story about themselves. Now, The difference is there are plenty and plenty of people who've got sad stories, who've made a massive success of their lives. Do you know why? Because one day they woke up and they went, do you know what? I'm not going to let that affect me anymore. I am going to make the best of my life. And
But to people who can't motivate themselves to do that, like, because there are there's people who, like, I've seen who, that there's people out there who no one knew because they did what you said. They put on a smile.
I'm not talking, no, you're misunderstanding me. I'm not talking about putting on a smile. Okay, that's not what I'm talking about. It is deep down trying to find that sense of joy. Okay, sometimes it could be to do with sort of nutrient levels. We've spoken about this. If you're not eating well, if your body isn't functioning, I believe that we are made of mind, body, and spirit. And if one of those is not right, the others get knocked off. So if, for example, you're not eating properly, you're not looking after yourself properly, you haven't got the right vitamins and things, that can affect your mind, which can affect your spirit and how you connect with God. Conversely, if you haven't got a good connection with God, that can affect your mind, which can affect your body. So it's about aligning, and I'm writing a book about this at the moment called Choice. Our brains are like antenna, really. We pick up things, and what you pick up is determined by what you choose and how you choose to live your life. And I think if you aim for excellence, if you aim for positivity, okay, it's really easy for me to say this, but when you're in the depth of darkness and you can't see any hope, the funny thing is I've been there, Rory. I have been to places where I wasn't far away from those guys who did that. Okay. And I would challenge most people to admit, God willing, I hope a lot of you haven't experienced that, but I've been in those deepest, darkest places. And for me, I think it starts with giving thanks to God. If you wake up in the morning, and even if you're feeling like shit and you're just like, you just don't want to get up and you want to just, jump off a roof and kill yourself, please don't ever do that. I just, it breaks my heart to think anybody who could murder themselves, kill themselves. Yeah, I think we will do a prayer, but I just want to finish this. Sorry. And I just want to say that if you are in that place and you can wake up and just say, Lord, because it says, cover yourself in praise, cover yourself in a garment of praise when you are in despair. It's a very powerful thing. So just think about it. You cover yourself in a garment of praise. You lift up your prayer to God because you can't help yourself. And you just say to him, I just want to thank you, God, for everything you've given me. And right now I'm in a hole and I can't see how I can get out of that hole. And I know what it's like being in that hole. Imagine the hole. The hole had steep, muddy walls and I could not climb out of the hole. Okay, I couldn't climb out of it. And I had no hope. I had just despair that I was going to be in that hole. And when I reached out and I said, God, I don't want this, it was almost like someone just put a ladder down and gave me a chance to climb out of that hole by just asking God and saying, here I am. I'm in despair. Help me with this despair. And then what you do is you just say, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I promise you, I really promise you, because I've done it, you start to lift. It takes a little while, and you've just got to train yourself. So don't focus on the self, focus on to God. There's a lovely parable about Jesus on the boat, yeah, when the storm is raging. And they're on the boat and the storm's raging and he's on the shore and they're like, aren't you going to do, we're going to drown, you're going to come to us. And then he starts walking on the water to them, okay? And the funny thing about it is that not once does he look at the water, he looks at them and he walks to them. So what he does is he's looking at what he wants to do, which is to save them, but he doesn't look at the water, because if he looks at the water, then he'll see that he's on water. And, it's a little bit like that with life. You've got to look at what you want to achieve, look at the things you want to do, the people you want to make happy. Think about people who make you happy and think about making them happy. Think about giving something rather than taking something. And I think that will start to change your thinking, and it'll bring you to that place.
Wow.
But gratitude, grace is available to us. We have it. The mere fact we're breathing and living right now is God's grace. Okay, but if you haven't shown gratitude, when you give gratitude, you get joy back. And so give gratitude and keep giving it until you start feeling the joy, and you will.
Wow. I mean, absolutely beautiful, Steve, as always. Just the most beautiful monologues. Wow. Just absolutely in awe. Just brilliant. What you said about giving, I think I can't say enough to people. I remember my parents said, because they would, they haven't been financially well off, and during my life, and they've always been big on giving. And I remember my dad said to me once, he was like, the more you give, the more you receive.
Yeah.
And it's funny because for them it was actually the more they give, literally, the more they receive with. And I think in life, what you receive is how you perceive that. It's a classic one. I prayed God for strength. He gave me the opportunity to be strong. I prayed for kindness. He gave me the opportunity to be kind. God doesn't give you things. It's what you choose to do. And in the depths of despair, giving and gratitude is so important. But I struggle with that, because then it's like, if you are that person, how do you battle and grapple with such a thing? But all I can say is, what do you want from life? There's never an excuse not to give as well. And this is something I wrote in my recent Substack, and it's something I've learned that. And I used to have a view of there's a threshold to give. I can give now, I can give then. And like the woman at the temple, it's not how much you give, it's how much you sacrifice to give. And I said in my recent Substack that kindness is not, anyone can be kind, true, but kindness is not just being kind, it's sacrifice. If there is not sacrifice, it is not kindness. It is vanity, it's ego. You have to sacrifice to be kind. And that's why that could be anything. That could be you're 50p and you buy a 25p Freddo for a homeless guy. That you're more generous than a guy who's donated $1 billion to charity, because that's half of your wealth you're giving away.
100%.
And that's what it's about. It's not about. And with social media and everything, we get caught up in numbers and, this person gave this much, this person gave. It's not about that. Because if your intention is vanity in that respect, what are you doing? Seriously, what is your intentions? But there is always the opportunity to be kind. May that be, if you have no time and you give some time to someone, you'll be an unbelievable generous. If you have little to no money and you're giving money to someone, the Christian ethos around kindness and giving is important. And I think it's a very key part of Christianity that sometimes people overlook, because it's within that it sets you free the most. But I do actually want to, can we do a prayer for all those people out there suffering? Because I know, statistically, I don't know how many people listen to this, but there'll be a chance someone out there will be suffering with depression, they'll be depressed, they'll hate their lives, they'll hate themselves, they'll hate their family, whatever. And I want to just, can we pray for those people?
I just want to clarify, because you talked about the lady in the temple, and some people might not know what that's about, but one of Jesus' parables was about how you should give, really. And he talks about the wealthy man going into the temple with pots of gold and leaving the gold in front, and then standing up and shouting to everybody, "Look how much gold I've given! Look at me!" And in the corner is an old woman who is in rags, and she just has the smallest coin, which is like less than half pence. It's called a widow's mite, and it's a little tiny coin. It's all she's got in the world. And she goes and gives that. And Jesus said, which is the greater giver? The one who's given all those millions of pounds of gold, or that woman who gave the last penny she had? And so, it sounds a little bit, in our society, it sounds very trite to say things like that. But the fact is, also when you give with a good heart. Don't give expecting to receive. Now, we're talking about giving to receive, but it's not, don't go and give thinking, right, I'm going to give £10 because I'm going to get £100 back. All right. Don't do that. Give it because you want to give. Find that place which says, actually, do you know what? I really want to give it to that person. And sometimes, I remember there have been times when I've been in a shop and someone's taken their coins out. I was in Bristol a little while ago, and this guy wanted to buy some cigarettes, and I could see he was really hard up, and you could see he was exhausted, he was tired, and he was just so low, and he wanted to buy cigarettes, and he was looking for his cigarettes. Something had happened, I don't know what, and he was like looking at the coins, and he looked at the woman, and he didn't even have enough to get it. Okay,
poor lad.
And she was about to say sorry, and I said, look, and I was a bit pissed off actually because I wanted to buy and I was in a bit of a rush. But I also thought, actually, do you know what, poor guy? I said, look, put it on my bill. I'll buy a cigarette. He looked at me and he said, what? I said, yeah, I'll get cigarettes. I said, please, I want you to enjoy those. Don't worry about it. It's not a problem. I've got the money. Happy to buy it. I bought him. I went outside. He came up to me to thank me. And I said, mate, when you get a chance, pass it on. But I did this because I could see you really wanted those and I had the money. Hey, it's not a problem. I'm pleased I could help you. Have a great day.
Beautiful.
And it's simple. It's simple. You know, if we did that for people,
Yeah.
imagine how brilliant the world would be.
Yeah, everyone in shop struggling. They're like, no, I've got it on me. I think that's beautiful. I think within that, one thing you can, before you give, think about why are you giving, and if your intentions are wrong, I would actually, this is a bit of a weird one, and people don't say it, so I would actually say don't give, but give differently, because you can run into the trap, and I wrote about it in my Substack about the kindness trap of, you know, what are your intentions? Ego, vanity, admiration. Like, you want to be careful. So that's why secrecy and actually doing things with a pure heart, whatever that be in life,
and not boasting about it.
Yeah, may that be love, kindness, gratitude, like whatever it is, achievements, anything. I would say always try and keep things to yourself, unless you know that the positives of you explaining it from your true heart can be great. And I struggle with this as well, because my podcast, I want cultural change. I want change in young people. I want change in that. Some people think I'm judgy. Some people think I'm up myself. You got some good criticism. I think that there's definitely things I can work on, and sometimes I think maybe I do go too far in that respect. But I also know that when I do try, I'm coming from the place of I want cultural change, and it's a thin line, but it's something I think in the depths of your heart, if you know what your truth is, what you're about, why are you doing things? Are you doing things because of perception? Because it's easy. If you get admiration, it's easy to convince yourself that's why you're doing things. But if you're a naked human being with no money, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And what, because people pretend that, they might pretend like I'm doing this because of that, I'm doing that. But I think when you strip away, you sit on the end of your bed and you think, why am I doing things? You will find the truth. You might not like the truth, but you will find the truth.
Again, it all begins and starts with the mind, and you need to protect that. And I want to pray, but there's a couple of things I want to cover off. And I started going off on that thing about the cappuccino. The reason I wanted to make a point about that was people use words and don't really understand the etymology of the word. Where does that word come from? And I just want to bring up a word that I hear over and over again. It's to do with individuality, and the word is narcissistic. Okay, and it does my head in because, funnily enough, I after my divorce and separation, I fell into a relationship, and I was talking. It was a very odd relationship, and I hadn't really had a relationship for many years, so I was struggling with this. And this individual was really playing me around, and I was talking to this guy, and he said to me, "She's a narcissist." Now I knew the word, but all of a sudden, it's the first time I'd heard it. This is about 10 years ago. It was in a bar. The guy said, she's suffering from narcissistic personality disorder. I didn't know there was such a thing. So he explained that it was people who are, they just live for themselves, and you are a commodity for them to feed off, kind of thing. And I hear it over and over and over and over again. And actually, sort of what I realised is that in our society, there are actually people who are so narcissistic that they can't give, they have to take. Okay, and it's a real problem because it's now become a term of kind of description. So instead of saying, he's a bit of a pain in the arse and he's selfish, he's narcissistic, it's hackneyed, it's become boring. So I just wanted to say narcissus is a word that came from the Greek. Is a Greek myth about a young shepherd boy who was called Narcissus. That was his name. And he fell in love with his reflection in the pool. And he fell in love so much that, in the myth, he died and he became those little flowers, yellow flowers, which are called narcissi. And so what I'm trying to say is that, this concept of narcissism, why are we so preoccupied? Why is it so used? Why is that term now bandied more than any other term? When I discuss relationships with people, first thing they'll say, oh, he's a narcissist. It's kind of a bit embarrassing at the moment. The number of people who use that term don't even understand what it means. Like they don't understand what cappuccino really is, but we'll talk about that another time. But I'm just saying that there's something wrong with our society where relationships now are determined whether the person in the relationship is a narcissist or not. Okay. And again, that comes to selfishness. Narcissism is selfishness. It's self-adoration. It's adoring oneself over and above other people. So we're talking about giving. And so if you put yourself above others because you are so damaged, or there's something within you which means that other people have to worship you, or other people have to do what you manipulate them to do. And, gaslighting is another term that's used. So I just want you all to think for a minute about your own behaviour. Are you a narcissist? Are you selfish? Are you gaslighting other people? Are you manipulating people? If you are, you're a shit. There's no other way around it. You really need to get a grip with your life, because if you're behaving like that, you're causing pain and misery for other people, and you're eating that up. Now, we've spoken about the evil one and the wicked ways of the world, and the wicked people are people who behave like that. And I just wanted to bring that up because, I want to address, there may be people listening to this who, I'm hoping that the vast majority are really decent empaths, which is the opposite, and the world at the moment is very much run by psychopathic narcissists because they are interested in gaining all the wealth for themselves. They want what makes them happy, and they think that by having wealth, having a big car, having nice clothes, having everything else makes them happy. But it doesn't. It's like drinking seawater. It just makes you more and more thirsty. So what happens is they become more acquisitive, acquiring more and more things to the expense of us, and they trample on people who care for others. I don't know what the solution to this is, other than to go on.
Well, I would say, and I want to apologise, and I did a recent apology in my last episode, but I was a culprit of overusing that word. I described these girls on a podcast, I called them narcissists, and it was over the top. Based on what they said, they made a just standard point. It wasn't even what they said wasn't even particularly negative, and I just called them a narcissist, like this massive word, and it was ridiculous. So yeah, but about what you said, so about narcissism, that is the crux of
selfishness. It's selfishness.
And
it's selfishness and self-aggrandizement.
Yeah,
it's loving yourself so much that you fall in love, which is narcissist. He fell in love with his appearance in the reflection. Yeah. I mean, how sick is that?
Yeah, I mean
But doesn't that describe society?
Yeah, but the crux of it is secularism in the West, because and this kind of overarching thing links with what the episode's about, which is individualism.
That's what I'm bringing it up.
And because with the lack, and we will go into religion in the other episode, how that's shaping the West, but that embodies it, because when you are the God, your actions, you will act and treat yourself like a God. Therefore, you thinking you're good, you thinking you're the shit, is part of that God-like narcissism. And when you have God, it means your soul and your true intent is exposed to yourself. Yeah. And that's so scary. It's absolutely terrifying. It's freeing in many ways, because it knows that you are loved for you and what you do. But on other ways, it means you can never lie to your soul, and you can never escape the true wrath of reality of what it is to believe in God and Jesus. And I think that underlies all of it, because that's why young people act the way they do now, because secularism is rife, and within that, they worship themselves in what they want. And people could say I'm being hyperbolic in saying that about our generation, and maybe you're right, but from what I see a generation living for themselves. If you speak to the average young person, what's the one word they'll bang on about 24/7? It's I feel this, I want that. It's just constantly I. You speak to someone from an older generation, it's well, our community, well, my friend, well, my husband. It's night and day. And that's why I adore hanging out with my gran, because she's from a generation
Oh.
that lives for the other,
Yeah.
not for themselves.
Yeah.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what the episode's about.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I've got a Bible verse which encapsulates that and brings it into, it crystallizes exactly what you're saying. And the issue is with the secular world filled with atheist beliefs and New Age belief, and it's really, postmodernism. I find it interesting the way I'll talk to someone and I say, just in the conversation, do you have faith? And they say, oh, I'm spiritual. I'm like, what does that mean? I'm spiritual. Oh, right. I kind of like, yeah. Oh, that's great. Do you know anything about Jesus? No. Why would I want to be with Jesus? I'm spiritual. I'm charging my chakras and all that kind of stuff. Now, okay, it's great. I love people who do yoga and all that kind of stuff. And it's, that is a way of people finding joy and happiness. But I've tried a lot of these things. Okay, I've played around with a lot of faiths. I did transcendental meditation. I did Buddhism. I did all these things. And when it boils down to it, there's only one man who gave so much of himself. He didn't sit under a Bodhi tree in a state of meditation. He went around healing people, forgiving, just teaching this concept of love. And saying, just love one another, just love one another, heal one another with your love, do all these things. And how was he rewarded? He was, he was hung up and crucified, the most painful death anybody could experience. Okay, I mean, I'm not going to go into the details of it, but it's pretty grim. Okay, and
the Passion of the Christ.
Oh, please watch the Passion of the Christ. But most importantly, what a lot of people don't understand is they say, well, Christ died on the cross, didn't he? Yeah. You've got to understand the historic backdrop. Basically, God loved us so much, and we had distanced ourselves from him because the teachings of the Jews at that time, the Pharisees and the Sadducees, was about keeping the laws. So it was a very secular, almost. It was religious. It was religiosity. If you behave like this, if you do this, if you sit and do that, and if you pray in public and you do all these things, then you'll be blessed. If and they believe that people who had lots of money were blessed. Jesus turned around and said, no, who is blessed? Look at the what he preached on the Beatitudes, which we'll cover another time. Blessed are the poor, for they shall inherit the earth. Yeah. Those beautiful words. So he turned it upside down.
And what's the quote about the rich? It's harder for.
It's harder for a camel to pass through the eye of the needle. No, it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of the needle than it is for a rich man to enter heaven. Okay, and this is an amazing story because the background of it, this is what they believe Jesus was referring to, because you've got to contextualize these terms, was that there was this tiny little gate, an entrance gate into Jerusalem, which was called the Eye of the Needle. Okay, because you had to squeeze through it. And so camels were an example of wealth, because the camel would carry the wealth of its owner, all right? And so what he was saying was it was easier for a camel, but in order for the camel to get through that, it would have to shed everything it was carrying. And so the camel could just about squeeze through this tiny gate to get through. But what he's saying is a rich man can't shed those things. So it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of the needle by shedding what it has than it is for a rich man who loves his possessions, who won't let go of them. It's like the story about the monkey trap. You know the monkey trap? Okay, so in the old days, in India, the days of the Raj, if they wanted to catch a monkey, they used to make these like bowls, and the bowl had a very narrow top. Okay, and then the bowl was attached to a chain. And so what they'd do is they'd put a banana in the bowl. Okay, so the monkey, using his hand like that, could put his hand in, but as soon as he grabbed the banana, he'd form a fist, and he couldn't get it out. He couldn't get the hand out, but he wouldn't let go of the banana. So he'd try and run away, and he couldn't run away because he wouldn't let go, and he hadn't worked out that all he had to do was let go of the banana, and he could pull his hand out. And it's a little bit like people with wealth. They're so attached, they can't let go of it, and so they're trapped. They're trapped in that wealth trap. And so,
wow. No, brilliant. And that underlies again secularism, because if your ambition is to just acquire, then why not, why care about if you're attached to it? Like if you're because secularism, people always bang, and I spoke about this with Alan actually from a recent episode. He said, well, religion, isn't it, it's comforting of secularism, which isn't, you don't have that kind of nice lovey, oh, there's an end, there's a start, Jesus loves you, all this. But I would reverse that, because if God doesn't exist, you can plaster your life with materialism, with pleasure, with an endless array of things. Like, the list is endless, because why not? If there's no overarching structure, may that be even what it means to be virtuous, even if you believe, even if you're a secular, because there are secular people who do live great lives, and that part of that is because the bedrock of religion is giving them direction of what actual is virtue. So even in that respect, they are living in somewhat a religious life. But about kind of acquiring wealth, I've realized like so much of why people do that is a plaster of insecurity. Like, the reason they have money is as an escape to or like, why do people have a big car? Why do people have a nice watch? Why do people have all these things? It's a plaster of insecurity to them. And I suffer with it. Well, I just want to, I'm not like someone who, like, I want to make money, I want to make this, I want to do this, but I also know that will be the downfall of me, and my reasons for that have to be set in a virtuous way, and I struggle with that, and that's difficult, but you got to aim for that, because if you don't, money will break you. And I know that money will not make me happy in life. I know that if I had nothing but I lived a fulfilling life, that would be my success, my happiness. I know that. And I know that I'm victim to using money as a blanket, as a plaster of my own insecurities and downfalls in life. I know that. But it's what you aim for and what you strive for that makes that kind of all-encompassing. Let's do the prayer.
Yeah, I just want a couple of things. Virtuousness and religion. When I spoke about Jesus earlier on and the Pharisees and Sadducees, I just want to say this about religion. Religion killed Jesus. Okay, the physical aspect of it was he was killed by the Romans, and the Jewish people put him up to the Romans to be killed. But the fact is that what caused him to be killed was the accusations that he had claimed to be God. Okay, the fact is he was God. He claimed to be God, and the Jews used their religion to say that he wasn't God, because according to their religion, he wasn't God. So I often say that it was religion that killed Jesus. Isn't that the craziest thing? And so the problem with religion is it's open to manipulation by wicked people. And religion is like a psychology. What you need to practice is faith, which is a connection with the Creator outside the religion. Okay, go to church, do those kind of things, but don't look at the dogma. Don't think that if you cross yourself a certain way, you're going to be cursed or whatever. It's not. It's about that gentle faith, feeling the love of God and the fact that Jesus died on the cross to save us, and that love was then available for all of us to feel. That's why it's BC before Christ and AD after Christ, because the world changed at that point. At that point, love came into the world and forgiveness.
Well, they've changed it now because fucking political correctness or something. I don't know.
It is BCE, isn't it? Something else. It's called something like that. It's called something like that. And the other thing is this virtuousness, is virtue signaling. That's the other thing that really gets me. When people want to show how they're virtuous, and it just makes me sick. Driving electric cars. I think that's really virtuous. Sorry, I think I'm going to piss people off, but hey, that's what I'm here to do. So let's say the prayer. But before we say the prayer, sorry, I'm going to save that to the end. I want to read you this, guys. Again, so I prepared this. I did a little bit of preparation, Rory. Yeah, I did a bit of preparation. So I prepared this. Oh, God, I can't get into it now, can I? Yeah, I can. Right. Okay, so I've got to go this. Now this, I think, hopefully this will chime with a lot of you. Now this is a New Testament reading from the book of Timothy. It's 2 Timothy, so it's the second book of Timothy, chapter 3. And you just need to read the first 3 or 4 paragraphs. So I'm going to read this, and you tell me how much this affects you, all right? But mark this: there will be terrible times in the last days. People will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, proud, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, without love, unforgiving, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not lovers of the good, treacherous, rash, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying its power. Have nothing to do with such people.
Powerful.
That is a prediction of the last end days. Now, does that ring any bells with our current
you could have
individualism?
Is that a mirror or?
Wow.
Yeah,
How is
like
that? Every time I read that, it punches me in the face every time, because I look around society and I think, whoa, how true is that?
Yeah, you can just, I mean, it's just all spot on, really. I can't think of anything that wasn't more accurate in that. I'm actually so let's now pray for all the people out there suffering, because like a lot of people are suffering. And it's one thing I've seen a lot of. I'm acting like it's a unique thing to see. Everyone sees it everywhere they go, whatever they're doing, they see a lot of suffering. But I want to kind of almost honor those people out there, people who are listening to the show right now, to say we hear you and to pray for you, because it's so sad how many good people are suffering. And yeah, let's pray for them.
Okay. Glorious, loving Father God, I give you thanks and praise for all the beautiful things you've done for us. Thank you for this beautiful world. Thank you for the air we breathe. Thank you for the blue sky, the sun, the moon, the stars, everything that is created, this beautiful planet. And I just want to thank you for each and every one of those people who are listening to this podcast, who are connecting with Rory and I right now. But especially I want to lift up those who are suffering, who are in pain because of whatever has affected their mind and caused them to lose hope, live in anguish, despair, depression, doubt, and difficulty. Funnily enough, all the words begin with D. I'm sure I could find more if I could think about it. But Father, I just want to lift up everybody who is in that place of despair. And I just ask that you will, through your Holy Spirit, touch each and every one of them as they lift their eyes to you and call on your name. Call on the name of the one true living God, the Father God, Father, Abba Father. Call on the name Abba Father and ask for joy, ask for wisdom, ask for the love of Jesus Christ to come into your heart, and let that wait and just sit and wait for the love of God to overwhelm you, because it will. Sit in silence, be expectant, be hopeful that God will touch your heart and will take you to that place of happiness, joy, bliss, whatever you want to call it. And you will get there. You will. But it takes a little bit of work. And Lord, I just ask that you will give them the patience and the endurance to be able to get through to that beautiful place. And I lift every single one up to them. And I want your healing, the healing of Jesus Christ. In the name of Jesus Christ, I say be healed. Be healed from whatever anguish or despair you feel. And let the joy of this world and the love of Jesus fill you to the brim, till it overflowing. In Jesus' mighty name, amen.
Amen. Absolutely beautiful, Steve. Thank you for that. And I hope that that has been of some comfort at all to anyone out there. Even if you're secular, you don't believe in Christian. It'd be funny see how many secular people we got listening to this show. But even if you're one of those people, like big respect to you.
Oh, yeah. It's about love thy neighbour, isn't it? Love one another as you would have others love them and love you. And just if you're secular, if you're atheist and you're struggling with faith, I don't condemn you, and none of us condemn you. How could we? I'm not here to judge. All I'll say is try not to spend too much time reasoning things, and try a little bit of faith, see where it goes.
Amen. And thank you to everyone who's listened to this episode. It's been an absolute pleasure. The first episode, one of many. Today we covered individualism and how it's affecting the West and young people. We could have gone into so many avenues, but I like actually how we've kept it so broad, because we could have talked about jobs, we could have talked about sex, we could, whatever, but we kind of kept it broad.
I think we did. Kept it
on
track.
So I think we've kept it. So everyone can take something from this episode, but thank you, every single one. Please share this around from the highest rooftops to a friend, a family member, someone you love, whoever. Please, send it to them and just say, this episode, give it a watch. I find it interesting. However, if you're like, well, I guess you won't share it if you think it's shit. But
or if you really didn't enjoy it, just say, there's this really shit podcast. You got to watch. It's really shit. Just do it that way. You never know what kind of reaction you'll get. It's a really bad podcast.
No, do that. I mean, if you hate it, really this stupid bold cunt who's just waffling, that absolute clueless 20-year-old thinks he knows the answers to the world. Have a watch.
Anyway, I want to go and get a cappuccino and a croissant. It's Sunday morning, and I need to go and have my cappuccino and croissant to wake up.
Come on. Love that. I've got to have a herbal tea. I'm loving the herbal teas. Today I had a lemon ginger and Manuku honey organic bio or some shit. Fucking no.
You're so healthy.
Yeah, I'm so healthy. Oh, look at me.
You're gonna go for a swim, aren't you?
I will go for my Sunday morning swim. You know, feel God in the water as you should do. Best thing you can do, by the way, if you're whatever you're feeling, just chuck yourself in some sea. You are hugging God, as I write in my.
You know the old great saints of the Celtics. Saint David of Wales was known as one of the watermen, and what they used to do is they used to literally stand sort of waist deep in the water and hold their hands out like that, and they would stay for hours praying to God, and they felt that the connection of land, water, air, which is where the word law comes from, land, air, water. Because law comes from God. The law doesn't come from man; it comes from God. So they would connect all three, medium, and then connect with God. So they were called watermen. It's quite an interesting thing. I went to St David's. We'll talk about another time. Got carried away.
Amazing. Well, thank you to everyone who's listening. I fucking love you, and I really do hope that this episode 1 of this series has been good, and the hype's been worth it, because there's a lot more coming every Sunday morning at 12 o'clock. Actually, I haven't even finalised the time.
Yeah, don't worry. Whenever you listen to it.
Right, I know. Every Sunday morning, 9 o'clock. Absolutely butchered that. But 9 o'clock every morning. If you're not into politics and you want to just come chill with us every Sunday morning, we are your Sunday sermon. But I fucking love every single one of you. If you are,
lots of love to you.
If you are listening on iTunes, give it the rating. It would mean a lot, as it helps the podcast. Whatever you thought of the show, if you think it's a pile of absolute wank, give it the rating and say that. If you think I'm a piece of living shit, give it the rating.
Hey, don't
and give it 0 stars.
Yeah.
And whatever you think of the episode, please do let us know. Send in your messages. What are your concerns? What are you dealing with? Send it to the radicalenglishgentleman@gmail.com, and I will read them. Follow me on Instagram @RegPodcast. Follow me at Twitter @RoryPodcaster. Do check out Steve. Where can people catch you?
They can't at the moment. I'm hiding. So when I do sort of decide to reveal myself to the world in some form or the other, I quite fancy the name Serendipity Steve. I quite like that. Okay. Yeah. Cover that another time, but you might find me on a site called Serendipity Steve at some point. So I haven't really worked out what I'm going to do on that, but I would like to say that if any of you are struggling and you want to have some prayer or even a chat, get in contact with Rory. I'm really open to talking to any of you. Obviously my time is important to me, but it's more important that I can help you. So I won't be able to spend days with you, but maybe a couple of hours if you need it. So I'm there if anybody needs that.
Beautiful. Yeah, do reach out. And if anyone, struggling out there, please do reach out. Because, if you feel like no one loves you, know that we love you, we care about you, and thank you for giving us our time that we can rant on like this. But anyway, I fucking love every single one of you. Make sure you tune next Sunday at 9 o'clock or this Thursday at 6 o'clock if you are tuning in to the political show. But any last words, Steve?
No.
Round up of the episode.
I think it's been brilliant. I've really enjoyed it. Like you said, I think we've kept on track. But it's good to discuss other things and bring up arcane knowledge and awareness of things. I hope you've all enjoyed it. And like Rory said, love conquers all. So try not to love yourself too much. Love others.
Amen. Fucking love you, and we will see you next Sunday at 9 o'clock.
That means you've got to get
this
on that quickly.
I
You got your work cut out for you, boy.
Yeah, fucking hell. Anyway, fucking love you all, and I'll see you next time.
Yeah.